Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 191. Welcome back, my friends. This is another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. If you're brand new here, my name is Tess. I am the host of this show, founder of Wander Wealthy, and business coach for all the money coaches out there. I take them through my exclusive 12-week coaching program called the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit, but today we have a really fun solo show coming at you. I'm going to be answering your questions. So I've been getting lots of questions in my DMs lately, and if you ever want to ask me a question, especially if you hear something on the podcast or you want to discuss something, or there's something random that I haven't maybe touched on quite yet when it comes to money coaching or building your business, hit me up. Head to Instagram and find me. I'm at Tess_Wicks, W-I-C-K-S, and just send me a DM. I'm always in there chatting with all of you. And if I get questions, I do my best to answer them. But I also thought I would bring these questions here to the podcast to kind of A, answer them a little bit more in depth, and B, bring them to all of you, because we all know this, right? They tell us in school, if you have a question, you should definitely ask it because most likely other people have the same question. Am I right? So I'm going to be answering some questions ranging from how to get people motivated to manage their own finances to lots of questions around marketing and Instagram DMing. So hold on tight, buckle in. We're going to dive into this. And you guys, just a little side note, I'm super excited because today I am recording this episode at my husband's standing desk. I actually built this for him. Humble brag, but I really do feel like that allows me to use it. He is out for the day. He's taking the day off work, and I'm like, I am going to record my podcast episode on your standing desk because for the past few months, I've been mainly recording the podcast in our bedroom, sitting on our bed. That's probably why you've been hearing me kind of knock around the microphone quite a bit because you guys, we're living in COVID times. His office is out in just like our main living area. Mine is tucked away in this office that wasn't really meant to be an office because there's like a sliding door. So there's not a lot of soundproofing in our place. So anyway, I am super excited about my setup today, but I digress. Let me share with you the sponsor of this week's episode, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty. So surprise, surprise, this week's episode is sponsored by the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. It is my 12-week business coaching program for aspiring, new, or frustrated money coaches, financial coaches, wealth coaches out there. So if you are sitting on the sidelines or wondering why, you've gotten into the race, but you're not quite getting the results you've been wanting to get in this coaching business and online business world, then this program is perfect for you. What we do in the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is I take you through my 8-phase blueprint that helps you not only really get to know and define your niche market, get to know them better than they know themselves, but then create an amazing, life-changing program that you know is going to sell, that you know they're going to love, and that's naturally going to sell itself once you're able to deliver it and collect all the raving reviews from your ideal clients. So there's so much more involved, and I'll be doing more informative sessions as we get through the next month, because in a month, at the end of November, enrollment for the next round of the blueprint is going to be open. And here's the deal. Because you are a podcast listener, you can jump on the waitlist and be one of the first to know, one of the first to sign up. I might even open the doors a teensy tiny bit early for you so you can get on the calendar for a strategy session, and we can make sure the blueprint is perfectly suited for you and discuss how to move forward. So we're going to be kicking off the Blueprint program starting in January of 2021. It's going to be the best way to kick off the new year. And the enrollment period is going to be kind of between Thanksgiving and Christmas, which are the two holidays I am celebrating in the winter. Is it winter yet? Fall/winter season. So head to wanderwealthy.com/apply so you can jump on the wait list. That will give you all of the details about what's involved in the blueprint, how we make sure that you are fully supported. If you scroll all the way down to that page, you can click on the button to join the wait list. And then, like I said, you'll be one of the very first to know when enrollment doors open. So wanderwealthy.com/apply. All right, let's swing over to the submitted questions from my DMs. I'm basically just opening these up and we're going to dive into them. Okay. So the first question that I got, this was a while ago, but I thought it was a really important question to answer here on the show. It is how to motivate people to start caring about their money. So this person has friends and family that just aren't bothered by it. They can't be bothered. And they have a little bit of money and don't want to spend so much time and energy tracking every penny. They already have things set up automatically, apparently. So they have that in order, but they still have debt and they're not motivated about money. Here is the short answer. You have no control over how other people think or feel. And although that stinks a majority of the time, it's also really freeing to know that you could do as much as possible and it's really hard to change other people's minds, right? And we know that in order for them to see the results that they want, they have to change their behaviors, right? Because behaviors lead to results. But in order to change our behaviors, we have to change how we feel and how we think. The truth of the matter is, we have no control over how other people think or feel. So I think this is really important because this could also come up for you in your coaching. And maybe you have a client who kind of starts becoming apathetic about how they manage their finances or whether this is really, worth it. Or maybe your client has a partner, or maybe they just got in a relationship with someone, or maybe they're trying to motivate their children. And that is another kind of challenge that you'll face potentially as a coach. So a couple things that you can try, but again, remember, and this is something that you should also, educate your clients on, is that at the end of the day, it's really hard to change other people. We can just change our expectations. We can change how we decide to respond and how we decide to feel about other people's lack of action around their finances, but there's not a lot you can do to really change how they think or how they feel. And I think that's something that's good to know for literally anything in life, but relationships especially, and any type of relationship. So again, if you're the coach and you're really, trying to deliver to your client and they're having some issues around getting maybe their partner motivated, or maybe it's their children or something, then some things that you can do is think about how they can at least crack open the conversation in a way that is attached to something that person cares about. So let's say you have a client, your client is a woman, and she has a husband who is not interested in budgeting or in tracking every penny or anything like that. What you can do is you can either, and actually as the coach, I would actually highly recommend that you just invite the husband to maybe a one-on-one call with you, or invite them to join the group, right, between you, the wife, and the husband. And you get into conversation and you really just start uncovering what their core values and priorities are in their life, right? That can cover anything. But once you really start to uncover what they really care about, where they really like to spend their money, what their goals are, what they really want to be having their legacy be, that's when you can start to kind of go, okay, now we have those top level goals or values or priorities. Let's dig into it and see how your current financial situation is either helping or hindering you in achieving those goals. Because so often, and what is really interesting about money coaching is money is just a tool. So a lot of the results that you can actually help your clients get are far above and beyond money coaching. And sometimes you can't even equate what the value is there. But another thing is that if your client has something really important to them that they would like to achieve someday, or they have something really important to them or something that they love to do that they're currently struggling to be able to do, or maybe they're unhappy with their current situation, but they don't really see how money can help I don't want to say money helps solve problems, but in a lot of ways, money can help. And sometimes they just can't see that. And so if you can create an experience and an atmosphere where you help them uncover and see how, in a lot of ways, money can be a catalyst to help them get to that next step, achieve that goal, or get out of his situation, that's where they'll start to find that motivation. So a lot of people aren't motivated just by like the idea of paying off their debt, because they think paying off my debt, then my money is just, it feels like it's just being thrown away to things I bought in the past. And so you really have to turn it around and show them, okay, what could the $300 that you're putting towards your minimum credit card payments across all your credit cards, what could you do with that instead? And before you even ask that, it's identifying like, what are you missing out on that you would really like in life? Or what are some of your goals that you haven't been able to make progress on? Why is that? Probably a lack of money. Why do you have a lack of money? Probably because it's going towards these credit card debt payments. And so there's ways that you can kind of help them work around it. But at the end of the day, it's also important to remember that you can't change people. And I know that's crazy, but you can create an environment to help them become and find their own motivation to change, but you can't motivate people. People have to motivate themselves. So I hope that was helpful, and I'd love to continue this conversation or see if you have any questions kind of that relate to that. When it comes to also delivering your coaching, I love to talk about that, and these are things that we dig into in the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, especially after my clients kind of go through the process of launching their program and getting clients in the door. There's so many questions when it comes to like, okay, what if my client asks this? Or I had a client who's dealing with this, and we get to go into kind of that problem solving strategy session. So I love this stuff. Send me your questions on Instagram if you have more like that. The next question is a little bit more logistic, and a lot of these, because they were sent to me on Instagram, are about Instagram. So this one, and probably a lot of you hang out on Instagram, especially if you found my podcast through my main social media platform, which happens to be Instagram. So hopefully these other questions really apply to you. This question is asking, do you recommend a business Instagram or just converting my personal Instagram to business? Should I delete any old pics before starting, or just post the launch and change my biography and my name? So the way that I think about, having a personal or business Instagram, I say start where you're going to have the least amount of friction. And most likely that's starting with your current account that you've already been running for however long it's been, and you currently have a number of followers there. Now, I know it can feel a little bit weird to all of a sudden turn your like private Instagram account into a public one, and then to the 200 followers that you have, be like, hey, now I have this thing. And maybe you're feeling a little weird because those are really people that you don't see as your ideal clients. But I have to say this, you never know. You never know if you potentially have an ideal client still in that audience. Also, and I just picked 200 kind of out of the air, and that's usually what I see a lot of my clients starting with. And so I just, that's a good number. And a lot of my clients go, well, I just have 200 followers. And I'm like, gosh darn it, imagine sitting in a room with 200 people and you telling them what you do and how you help. Like, can you imagine the results you would get and the reaction that you would get? And so it's not even a small number. And even if it was a private account before, now it can be public, and you have such a strong platform and foundation to start from, right? It's so much better than starting from scratch, than starting and opening a business Instagram. So I suggest do the thing with least friction and go with your personal Instagram account and just make it now about your business. And again, if the people in your audience aren't your ideal clients, I guarantee they probably know, like at least 1 in every 5 people in your audience knows someone who could be an ideal client, and they can refer you and recommend you or bring you up in conversation because they're already following you. The other thing that I think is important is I do have my Instagram account was my personal Instagram account for so long, and then it was my business. And then I made so many changes, but I really just kept with it. And I know that not everyone in my audience are my ideal clients, but I know that it's still the platform where all my ideal clients are. And especially if you're going through a big pivot or a change, the people who don't want to hear about what you're talking about now, they can just honestly remove themselves from the party. Like, they can unfollow you, and that is fine. We welcome that because we want to be magnets. We want to hyper attract who we really want to be working with, and hyper repel the people that, just don't jive with us, because it just makes it so much easier to do business. Now, something that I think is important is if you're turning your personal Instagram account into business, it's really important to try to stay in the mindset of what do my ideal clients want and need to hear today, and not, just using your personal account as both personal and business things. So if you still want the attachment, if you still want to hold on to some form of a personal account, I actually recommend setting up a new one, inviting, the people that you want to follow that one and keep it private and just away. Like, you can start from scratch there because that has no monetary need there. So start from scratch there, invite your friends and family to come follow you over there, keep it private. The kids these days, they call these a Finsta, because you can basically then follow anyone you want to follow on that account. And then your main account where you talk about your money coaching, you can focus on just following your ideal clients and therefore not getting distracted by, all these amazing business coaches that are out there telling you all these different things that you need to do, or getting distracted by Chrissy Teigen and her jokes, or getting distracted by literally anything, right? We need to manage our energy too. So I like to create that separation as well. The last thing I wanted to touch on is should I delete my old pics before I start posting about my new thing? And honestly, don't delete your old pics. They're there. They're the past. Most people aren't going to scroll all the way to the bottom of your account anyway. So just start with what you got. Don't worry about wasting time on things that aren't going to have a significant positive impact or a negative impact. Having old pictures is not going to change anything unless you were, for whatever reason, a terrible person in the past. Then maybe you want to delete those. But otherwise, no, just start posting what you need to post to get the word out and talk about and really focus in on your messaging and who your ideal client is and what they need to hear. And yes, update your name and your bio so that it is really clear about who you serve and how you can serve them. All right, we're trucking along here. Let me check the time. Okay, we got some time for a few more questions. So the next question I had is best practices for reaching out to potential clients through Instagram. And honestly, you can use this for any social media platform that you are choosing to be yours. And I've mentioned this in the past before, but do note that you should really just pick one platform. Usually it's the platform that the majority of your clientele are hanging out on, or whatever their favorite platform is. That's where you should go. Always go where your clients are. In this case, this person is asking specifically about Instagram, but again, this can apply to pretty much any platform where you could actually connect and request a connection, or the person gets notified when you start following them or whatever. Okay. So the first thing to do, because this is about reaching out to potential clients through Instagram, the first thing is making sure that you actually know how to find your potential clients on the platform that they're on. If not, you need to do more work on either creating a more specific ideal client profile, or you just need to really understand, where they hang out, do more research about where they hang out, or what sort of specific identifiable things you could use to really allow you to be browsing through your social media platform of choice and being able to kind of stumble on someone and go, yep, that's my person. And so this usually works really well, especially if you're on Instagram. It can depend. If the person would put some sort of identifier in their bio or in their Instagram handle, then you can definitely just search through Instagram search to find them. This works really well for people whose ideal clients are themselves doing business on Instagram or using Instagram as that sort of platform to do their own business. Another thing you can do is you can search by location on Instagram. You can also search hashtags. So if there are certain hashtags that your ideal client would use when they are posting, you would search through those. This is important. You wouldn't search hashtag money coach or hashtag financial coach because your ideal client's most likely not using that tag in their posts. So think about who they are and what they're all about, and think about, okay, are there certain hashtags that they might use when they post? I can think of one. If my ideal clients were actuaries, I would search for the hashtag actuary problems, because that was something I used to use all the time in my posts because I thought it was funny and it was so specific to who I was and the work that I did. Another thing you can do is you can find people through who they follow. And so this is stuff that you really understand the more research you do with your ideal client profile and who your niche is, and really understanding like, what are the top kind of influencers or celebrities that my ideal client follows? Are there certain specific interest groups that they're a part of, or, people, micro influencers that would be leading or be, influencers of these specific interest groups, and just go hard in that area. But that's how you really know how you can identify who your ideal client is. The next thing is to remove any pressure or urgency when you're connecting with potential clients online. Remove any pressure or urgency to make a sale right away, or even ask them to like spill their guts to you in the first DM. That's actually disgusting, right? That's why we hate the idea. A lot of us hate the idea of like selling online or selling in the DMs, because we've been sold to in the DMs in this disgusting way of people just like popping in and being like, here's my program, you're gonna love it. Or people popping in and being like, hey, what are your money goals, right? That's too fast. That is making a move on the first date when it's unwarranted, and we don't need that. We don't care for that. So instead, really just be a human, and remember that service-based businesses, especially like coaching businesses, it's all about building relationships and establishing trust, right? The end game, the end goal is for your ideal client to hire you to help them with one of the most sensitive topics probably in their life, right? A topic that they probably have never talked to anyone about. So imagine someone like that, and then someone else coming in and being like, tell me about this topic that you have never talked to anyone about ever, right? That's like too soon. So remove that pressure, remove that urgency, and approach these conversations and these connections and these relationships like you would in any other normal relationship scenario, okay? This might look like complimenting them on their style, or something that, they showed in their story. Or maybe it's simply just following them, engaging on their stuff, or friend requesting them if you're using like Facebook, or if you're using LinkedIn. What is that called? LinkedIn connection request or something? Really just like showing them a way to interrupt their life and say, hey, I'm a person. Are you a person? Cool. We're people. Cool. Good to know another person. From there, you can really start to, build a relationship. And a lot of times that will start publicly, right? So through engaging on their platform publicly before you really take it private, unless they're sharing something to their story, and then you can simply reply to the story, and then naturally that goes into their DMs. Sometimes simply just introducing yourself like you would in any other networking environment, or even like at a bar, that's enough. That's enough to get things started. Again, there's no rush or urgency to making the sale. I know maybe you really need to make money right now. And here's the other thing. Some people will move fast and look at your profile and be like, oh my gosh, you do this? You help people like me? That's amazing. Why didn't you tell me? And you'll be like, I was trying not to be creepy. And then they'll want to hire you. And other people will need some warming up. They'll need some space to breathe. They'll need you to come back. They'll need to just see that you genuinely take interest and care about them, that you're a trustworthy person, that you know what you're talking about, that you walk your talk. And through that, their trust and their desire to work with you will build over time. So know that everyone's on their own timeline, and just be a normal person reacting and responding, and also leading. You can definitely lead the conversation through asking questions, but asking suitable questions at the right time. So that leads me actually to our next question, because the next question is about navigating a conversation that might be happening in the DMs with a potential client, and especially navigating it when you feel like you've maybe been put in the friend zone. So you're having these conversations, but they just kind of keep going on and not really getting anywhere, and they definitely have not ended up at your desired result, which is to have this client hire you and work with you on their money. So the response here from my end is that having these DM conversations is quite funny, because you definitely want to make sure that you're appropriately asking questions and having conversations that make sense, that wouldn't scare this person off, but then also balancing that and having kind of the control over the conversation and leading with authority and still being the coach. and not letting it go into, oh, we're just friends and we ask questions back and forth and just continue to banter. So it's important for you to kind of step back and go, wait a second, am I driving this conversation? Do I have control, or have I kind of lost control of this conversation and now it's turning into some sort of a friendship rather than a coach-client relationship? And yeah, the line is a little bit blurry and gray here because on one end, I'm telling you to be a normal person and just be genuinely interested in this person. And then on the other end, I'm like, but don't become BFFs and never get the conversation to the point where you need to get it from, because this is still your business. But there is a way that you can do this. And one is to work on kind of bringing the control back to you. And one thing that you can do is if the conversation is going really well and you have a lot of back and forth banter, start to kind of guide the conversation. By this point, you've built this rapport with this potential person, with this potential client. You've identified them most likely that they are a suitable ideal client. They probably know about you and what you offer. So it can be time to start to navigate this conversation into the direction of what's the next financial goal that you're working towards or milestone that you're working towards. Or you could even come right out and say, have you ever hired a financial coach before? These are questions that most likely, if you've already introduced yourself and developed some sort of relationship with this person, they're pretty natural for you to kind of bring them in because so much of what we do is tied into our identity. And so, of course, you would want to talk about that. These questions also warrant a response, which is really good because then it gets the question receiver to actually tell you yes or no, or this is the goal that I'm working for, or I haven't really thought about that. And then you can continue to guide that conversation, of course, more into your area of expertise and then more into the solution that you could potentially provide to this ideal client, which is, of course, to, learn more about your program. So again, if you're noticing the conversation is kind of getting friend zoned, step back, analyze, think about how can I guide this more into my zone of genius when it comes to my business, my work. And if all else fails, sometimes conversations and relationships in general just need a little bit of breathing room. So don't feel the pressure to keep up the conversation just back and forth ping pong for forever and ever and ever. Feel free to, ask a question, you get the answer, step back, and then come back a couple of days or weeks, even months later. But do remember to always maintain the relationship, check in, but know that, you don't have to just go down the long winding road of friendship, unless, of course, sometimes those conversations just end up in friendship and not clientship, and that's okay too. So those are some things to think about when it comes to having those DM conversations. Another question is, I followed your advice and nurtured a couple relationships to the point where they asked about my offer. Great. So I sent them the link to my offer page and now crickets. No one is responding. What should I do? This is my favorite. I know it's not a great situation. The situation could obviously be better. They would respond, but I love talking about this question because I think it's so interesting how we immediately go into reaction mode of oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, or oh my gosh, I was too salesy up front, and we kind of make up all these excuses. And it's just I hate to make the comparison, but it's just like dating, right? You text someone, you let them know you like them, and then they don't respond, and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's over. I'm gonna go bury myself in a hole for the next 10 years and never come out. So here's what I like to remind my clients, especially when this comes up. First, always remember that when you are selling, you're coming from a place of service. And when you're doing that, you should always come from this place of high intention, low attachment. So I know how difficult it can be, and it's always super easy for us to spiral into despair after making our offer and not hearing a response back right away, especially if that response isn't, yes, sign me up, right? But this doesn't mean necessarily anything, right? It doesn't mean that you're being too salesy or pushy, because you have the highest intentions of showing someone that you have something that can truly help them, specifically them too, if they're your ideal client. And in the same regard, you want to maintain low attachment. So if it's not the right time for them, or, they're just not really ready for that or interested in it right now, that's okay too. We don't have to force anyone into anything that's just uncomfortable for everyone involved. So when you're making your offer, you're not pushing anything. You're just saying, hey, I have this thing available. Are you interested in it? And I want you to have the highest intentions as you go into that, because you're offering something that could literally change someone's life. But having very low attachment, to know that even if they say, it's not for me, you can say, great, thank you for letting me know. I'm so glad. There's so much more where that came from. So I'm going to go, find the right people that it is perfectly suited for. Okay. The other thing though is that this doesn't necessarily mean them not responding right away doesn't mean that they're not interested. People generally need a beat to think, especially when you're coming at them with, hey, I have this thing that could actually solve a lot of your problems, right? We all want our problems solved, but then we also are thinking like, is this true? Could you really help me? Is it worth it? And that's okay. That's a normal human thought process. So give them a beat, right? They need to look it over, see what you're putting out there, and you just sent it, most likely. So at the end of the day, they also might have just forgotten that you sent it. Maybe they haven't even looked at it. Maybe they haven't even had time to look at it. And that actually leads me into my next point. So the first point is high intention, low attachment. The next point is the fortune, my dear, is in the follow-up. Seriously, most people are just plain busy, or they just aren't used to checking their DMs or receiving some great, potentially life-changing news. So follow up with them 1 to 2 days after you first send or have that discussion about your offer, okay? And everything you do, and especially when following up, make sure that you're also asking direct questions that warrant a response and lead to decisiveness. This is both good for you as the business person, so you can go, okay, we're done, let's move on. But it's also good from the perspective of you helping your potential client. They're not even your client yet, and you're already doing a service for their life by helping them come to a decision. Because living in indecisiveness and inaction is the least productive way to live, and it generally leads to just stagnation and unhappiness. So it's a really strong thing to do as someone who takes on the coach's persona even before someone is paying you to coach them. So always try to ask direct questions that warrant an answer so that you can get them to a decision faster, and you can get your answer so that you can either sign them up as a client or move on to the next person. Of course, you do always want to still follow up and check in with these people because their minds can change, and it's just good practice, but it's good to, like I say, fail fast. I always say that, and I've used that in almost every aspect of my life. So just a couple examples of what it could mean to ask questions that warrant a response. You want to stay far away from questions that go, what do you think? Or let me know if you want to get on a call, right? Those aren't even necessarily question. Well, what do you think is a question? But a lot of times we do this because we are almost afraid to hear no. So we ask questions where someone can't tell you no. You just want to know, like, how does it feel? What are your thoughts? What do you think? Let me know. And that is highly unproductive. And so instead, what you can do is ask them a question, especially in your follow-up. Hey, did you get a chance to check out my offer? Or are you free tomorrow to jump on a call at 7 a.m. or 6 p.m.? Maybe also insert this time zone if you're like me and have people in multiple time zones. So these questions warrant a yes or no answer, and they even just put the person in the position to feel like they need to respond, as opposed to when you say, what do you think? Or let me know, you really give them the opportunity to decide to not respond or not tell you what they think or not let you know. Right? So asking questions that get you to a yes or no or a specific answer. The whole reason we usually don't ask direct questions is because we're just terrified of rejection. We're terrified of hearing no. We don't want to give people the opportunity to tell us no. But I want you to remember, A, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. But also, my other favorite saying is fail fast to succeed faster. And really that just means like get the feedback as fast as possible so you can iterate and move forward. So those are my best tips when it comes to that. The last question I wanted to answer today, I don't have it written out in front of me, but it was something along the lines of pricing and whether you should publish your price, let someone know about your price, or keep it until you actually get on a sales conversation. And then while they're on the phone, tell them what the price is and what the payment options are. So obviously, you can do whatever makes the most sense for you, but even more importantly, I would do what makes the most sense for your ideal client and how you understand they might behave or react to either seeing your price publicly or not. So there are kind of pros and cons of publishing your price and not publishing your price. And pretty much when you publish your price, then the likelihood of you getting on the phone with people is way, way less. However, you can validate and know for sure that if someone is getting on the phone with you after seeing your price point, they're a lot less likely to be, have objections around the price point because they've already seen it. And so now they're just really, they know they want to work with you. They've already seen it. They're on the phone and it should be an easy sales call process. But again, you're going to see a lot less people kind of come through the funnel unless you have a really competitive price point and a market, a niche of ideal clients who would pay even more than what your price is. Now, typically with my clients and the way that I've personally approached my money coaching pricing, but also the way that I help the blueprint clients who are money coaches who have their own potential clients, the way that we typically approach pricing, because we're really focused on delivering and developing a high ticket offer. And high ticket really just means that they're going to be paying for a more high touch experience and probably be paying over $1,000 for the whole program that they're getting. In this case, I tend to not put the price out front. And there's a handful of different reasons for this. One, I think it's also really good, especially when you're starting out, to not put the price out front because it'll give you the opportunity to get on the phone with a lot more of your potentially ideal clients. And even if throughout that sales conversation, you're talking to someone and they're like, yeah, that price is not going to work for me, at least you got the experience of being able to get on the phone with them, talk about their situation, and get the practice of doing a sales call. The other thing is a lot of people don't understand the value of money coaching because money coaching is so new to the world. So we don't really know what other people are charging, or we don't know what the value is behind it. And you can't even really compare it super easily to something that would be adjacent, which would be like financial advising or anything, because so many financial advising companies charge on a percentage of assets. And so that can just be really difficult. Plus, they offer different services. So when it comes to understanding a price point as a client, right? If I'm someone who's looking for a money coach, I don't really know how much it's going to charge. But if I see one giant, over $1,000 price, it's a lot more likely that I'm just going to be like, oh, that's way out of my budget. There's no way I'm gonna be able to do that. Never mind. But a couple things are happening here. One, I haven't really rooted the value of coaching, and I have no one to help me understand the value of it. I have no one to help me understand what can I really get if I invest $1,000 in a money coach. What could I actually see in return? And obviously, when you're on the phone with your client, and let's say your client is me, you can help me understand that, and you can anchor that to my goals, maybe my debt, my savings goals, or even, how much I could be spending on things if that was my priority, or even investing or something like that. You can help me see the value of this investment. The other thing is sometimes you offer pricing options that really can help make your program much more affordable and accessible to your ideal clients. And a lot of times you lose them just from the sticker shock of seeing either the in full price or even the monthly prices right then and there on your sales page. And that can just, that's just unfortunate for both of you because it removes the possibility for you to meet and for you to really see how you can help them and how their life will be able to change after making this investment in themselves and in their financial education and financial management. So it's true that when you don't post your price, you'll have a lot higher likelihood that you'll get more sales calls, and you'll also have a lot lower close rate, which is ultimately people on a sales call then turning into clients, because they don't know the price point at the beginning. And so they're much more likely to have pricing objections and potentially walk away because of that price point. I still think it's really good for you as a new coach, especially, to still go through the motions of a sales call and get that experience of selling, get the experience of understanding how to help your client frame. And even sometimes, like, they can afford it, but they've convinced themselves that they can't because they don't understand their priorities and their goals and what they're really working towards and what they're currently spending money on right now either. So there's so many things that can come up even in that sales call where you have a coachable moment to help your client or potential client at the time see how you can make the pricing and the program work for them. Again, at the end of the day, you are coming at this from the highest of intentions, right? Helping people manage their money so they can get their lives into a better place. That's like, even though my clients have different ideal clients that they are wanting to work with, and they have different goals that they help their ideal clients achieve, at the end of the day, you as the coach, you're helping people, right? I think we can all agree you're helping people achieve a better life through managing their money. So this is a high intention service that you're here to offer. Obviously, there needs to be an exchange of value. There needs to be a price point that makes sense. That's another thing we really work on inside of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint when it comes to my money coaches pricing their services and finding something that fits and is perfectly suited for their ideal clients. But we need to have an exchange of value, and we know that there are ways that we can work it into our clients' budgets, that we can make it make sense in the long term or even the short term for our clients to see a return on that investment. And there's definitely ways to manage those conversations or really think through how to manage pricing objections, especially, which is more stuff that I include in the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. But I wanted to kind of share my 2 cents on whether you should publish your prices publicly or keep them private. And again, at the end of the day, it's up to you, but I would say do what's best for the client. And sometimes what's best for the client isn't to say, hey, I charge $1,500, and for them to go, oh, well, I'll never be able to afford that. So they walk away because they're letting their own understanding of their budget, their own understanding of finances get in the way of a potentially really great investment that they make to completely change their lives. So I'm going to end it on that. If you enjoyed this episode and you want more questions from me, you can send me your questions on Instagram. Just shoot me a DM, Tess_Wicks, TESS_WICKS is my handle. Just send me a message and I can potentially answer it right then and there, but then I will loop it into the next Q&A episode. And don't forget, if you are an aspiring new or currently frustrated money coach and you're ready to change the way that your business is going, or maybe it's not even off the ground yet, then head to wonderwealthy.com/apply to check out all the details of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. The next round starts January of 2021 and enrollment opens in just a month. So you can jump on the wait list by scrolling all the way to the bottom of that page and inserting your email, and I will shoot you a note to let you know when we're ready to get a strategy session booked. So wonderwealthy.com/apply. Thank you again for hanging out with me. If you want to take a look at the show notes of this episode, my podcast editors do an amazing job of creating some fabulous blog style show notes. So it's all written out for you there. Head to wonderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 191. Check those out and have the best day ever. Until next time, I hope you wander wealthy.